Good afternoon and welcome to another of the Veterans Forum programs. As you know, this is a chance for every guy and gal who served anywhere at any of the wars and conflicts we've had, if they are willing to, and we hope they are, to come and share some of those experiences with us here and make it a part of history. Today is another one of those shows and each one, if you remember, is different. Although we have the same cause, the way these guys and gals did what they did is sometimes amazing and awe-inspiring. Today is the 23rd of October, 2009, and we're here at the Pittsfield Community Television Studios. My guest today is Bob Elliot. I'll introduce him as Dat, ask him to introduce himself, spell his last name, and then we take it from there. Bob, you are on, if you will. Your name?
My name is Robert Elliot. That last name is spelled E-L-L-I-O-T-T.
Okay.
And
your dates of service and the branch service you were in, that kind of stuff.
Of course, I was born on October 27th, 1922, and in Pittsfield, Mass. And I went to school in all of the schools in Pittsfield, Mass. Crane School, Rice School first, then Crane School, and then Pittsfield High.
Okay.
And I graduated from Pittsfield High in 1940.
Well, let's back up a bit. I'd like to get a little, what branches of service were you in? We forgot to do that.
Oh.
Where, when, and so on.
Yes, I was in the Army.
Okay, from when to when?
Well, I was inducted into the Army on October 28th, 1943, the day after I was 21.
Okay. And you lasted for there how long?
I served until roughly March, I think it was March 16th of 1946.
Okay, very good. Now we can go back to where and when were you born. So what we'll try to do is establish where you are now, and then how did you get there?
Yeah, okay.
If you will.
All right. Yeah, I was born in Pittsfield, as I said, and I went to all the schools, and I took the college degree in Pittsfield High School. I graduated, as I said, in 1940. I went to work for General Electric Company.
Something new in Pittsfield, huh?
Well, back then, yeah. It was, I went to work as an apprentice draftsman.
Oh, okay.
And I spent 3.5 years as an apprentice draftsman, graduated from that course. And then on the graduation, getting back a little bit, in this apprentice course, you worked during the day, and we went to school at the PHS at night. And during that time at night, somebody from the Army came and was asking us about whether we would like to qualify for the Army Specialized Training Program.
Oh, ASTP, yeah.
And so I entered that, and I had to answer some questions and things, and they said I was qualified. And so I went back to GE, and I had a deferment for the first 2 years of the World War II. And I just thought the ASTP course was where they would send you to school and try to train you to be a little more technical in the battlefield and be a little more like a leader. But so I had this deferment, and I wrote letters and various things around trying to get out of the deferment.
You wanted to get out of the deferment?
Deferment, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I did.
Okay.
I finally succeeded, and I was then sort of drafted, I guess, but I really volunteered. See, this was a volunteer process. Anyway, to me, anyways. Then I entered the Army, as I said, on the 28th October 19th.
Where were you inducted in? Where? Fort
At
Devens?
Fort Devens, Mass. And there I was given some more tests to see if the ASTP was for me. But I passed. There's the IQ test is what you had to pass. And they sent me down to Fort Benning, Georgia, and would take basic training there. At the end of the basic training, they folded the program up.
But you completed it, though, didn't you?
I completed the
ASTP?
no.
Oh, just boot camp?
Just the basic training.
Oh, okay, all right.
So then they reassigned us all to to the various places, but I was sent to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, to the 87th Infantry. There when I got there, I was immediately put in basic training again. So I took basic training there, and after I finished with the basic training, they sent us out on a hike to prove that we could qualify for Europe. And so out on that hike, we had to march through about 15 miles or so. We had to march through sand. We were not supposed to double time, but yet we got a little bit behind, and our captain raised his hand.
No. Womp womp.
And we double timed through the sand.
Oh.
As a result, I broke 2 metatarsal arches in my left foot. So I was put in the hospital. While I was in the hospital, my name was on the list as a replacement for Europe. And as a result, they scratched my name off. So when I got out of the hospital, I went back to the division to take my 3rd basic training.
Oh, it took a long time to get smart, huh?
That was my whole first year, basic training.
So you're well trained by now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got through the final basic training there, and we were on our way to Europe. And we went up to, I think it was Fort Dix, New Jersey, and then we were put aboard the Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, first cabin?
No. No, what it was is I was down way below the deck. I was, we were put in tiers of hammocks, I think. I was about the 3rd one up.
In a hammock or just a regular bunk?
No, it wasn't a hard bed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, but it was about 4 or 5 high, you know. There was 20,000 of us on the boat. So, pardon me. The thing is that the 20,000, where are they going to put them all? So they had to, you would spend 12 hours below deck and 12 hours up on deck.
On the weather deck?
On the open.
Okay.
And so that's, we sailed across the Atlantic, and went southward, then over by the Bermuda, and then cut across. And of course, we were a little nervous because of the German subs. Yeah. But at that time, they had pretty much beat the subs. The Germans had given up even trying to supply subs because they'd lost so many men, and so we got across without any problems. And
now, how was the sailing, though? We joke about the Queen Mary, the Queen Elizabeth, but what were the living conditions like, and what good and bad memories do you want to share with us?
One of the things is I was assigned to the garbage detail.
Oh, you ate regular then?
So we had the run of the ship to a great degree. And we were able to get back around I guess it's called the fantail of the boat, and we dumped the garbage off the end. And it's one of the most beautiful sights you can see is all this glitter in the ocean as, as the propellers
churned it
up. And it really was beautiful. And I got to run on the boat that way. And so, but I never got seasick, so I was glad at that.
How was the food, though? Anything special, or just strictly get in line, slop, slop, slop? Or?
Well, all I remember is where we served food. Essentially, I think it was in the, sort of like, I thought it was a swimming pool sort of area.
Oh.
Just sort of, you had to sit down someplace.
Yeah.
Sit down. So they had many different ways of doing it. So that's all I remember. We sailed across the Atlantic, and it lasted about, maybe 4.5 days or so.
Wow.
5 days. Well, Elizabeth wasn't slow, you know.
Oh, it was a fast trip. Now, were you escorted? Because I was told that sometimes that ship and others like it of that class would go by themselves with a private escort, because if you went with the convoy, they were too darn slow, you'd be picked off.
We were not in a convoy.
Okay.
We went over. I never saw another ship.
Oh.
And we sailed across to, I believe it was off the English coast. Then we headed north through the Irish Sea up to, and we landed at Greenock, Scotland.
Oh, Scotland, eh?
Yeah.
That must have been nice.
And there we offloaded and got on trains. We went down to central northern England. We stayed there, maybe a month and a half. Then I got on trains and went down to the coast of England and boarded across a channel crossing and landed in Le Havre, France.
Mm-hmm.
And we were offloaded there and put in camps that were named after cigarettes. And so I went to, I think, Camp Lucky Strike or something.
Oh, was it a Lucky Strike?
Well, anyways, we were then loaded on trains and headed for the French, the border. That's where the Germans had been driven back to pretty far back, almost into Germany. And our division was first put into combat at Metz, France.
M-E-T-Z.
M-E-T-Z. And we just there a short time, and then we were sent up to the front to replace a division that was up on the line. And it was quite an experience just to see what was left on the line, and not very pleasant to see.
Did you have any prior combat training in France with respect to what to expect?
Nothing.
Just a bunch of bodies, and then away you
Nothing.
went, filled in the spots.
We were supposed to be well trained.
Okay, supposed to be is a key word in it sometimes. How well trained do you think you were?
Well, it's hard to judge because you don't know what you're been expected to be, and we went through. At least I went through it 3 times. I ought to have some preparation.
Oh, yeah, basic, yeah.
And so we went up on the front lines, and we replaced the division, and we then took over all the front line positions. Oh. And the first battle we went on, we moved up to a hill, and I happened to be in a reserve sort of position, and we were on the back side of a hill, and the battle was going on up over the hill, and you could see a lot of stuff, but we were just on the back side of the hill, just standing there waiting to be called. And while I was there, the sergeant told me to dig a foxhole here. So I dug the foxhole, and just got through digging the foxhole, and then a replacement for our squad came up. We were not fully manned yet, and so we got up there, and the sergeant says, "Elliot, you let the new guy sit in your foxhole. You go over that shell hole." And it wasn't too long after that, a mortar shell came in, killed my sergeant.
Oh.
And the guy that was sitting in my foxhole, it ruined his knee. It blew his knee off.
You impacted there.
And so there I was in the shell hole, didn't suffer a scratch.
Okay, Yahweh's looking for you.
Yeah. So I went over to the guy that was sitting in my foxhole, and he needed help. So I took him down to the first aid station. We didn't know anything about medics.
Oh.
No. Nobody ever mentioned that to us.
Oh. So you were supposedly trained, you said, supposedly.
Lies.
I know. It
Anyways,
happens.
I took him down there, and they looked him over, and then they decided to look me over, and they found I had infected blisters on my feet. Essentially, what is World War I would be.
Oh, trench foot?
French foot.
Yeah.
So they put me in hospital too. So, but when I got back to the 87th after the hospital, they were in the process. What happened while I was there is the bulge. And so when I got back to the division, I had to rejoin them up in a different position in France. And I got involved in, I didn't do no combat, but just moving in there. By that time, the Germans, by the way, my general was Patton. And if you follow anything in the history of the Bulge, that Patton was assigned the duty of moving his divisions and his tanks and everything up into the area of Bastogne. And that's essentially, we were in that general area, but not quite up front. But after that, we were sent to through various. We drove through Bastogne, and then we went down to a place. We eventually we were assigned an area. I guess it was near Luxembourg. And one of the things that happened there in Luxembourg was we were assigned to a barracks or building with 3 stories, and our squad was up in the attic on the 3rd story, and one of the guys down on the 2nd floor, they lit a can full of gasoline for heat.
Ooh.
And then it was tipped over, and because the building was then on fire, we had to get the heck out of there. And so I and another guy scrambled down the stairs. We were the last ones to get out of the attic, and we got out of the attic. And we had to leave our rifles and everything there. So we got down. Everything was taken care of us. Went down there. So we just. I don't recall the details of it, but we were reassigned. Okay. We eventually went into combat in. We got to the shores of the Moselle River, and in assault boats we went across the Moselle River, and we got up to the top of the sort of not exactly a canyon, but a very, very steep bluff.
Like a mesa?
Yeah, and we got up on top of there, and they couldn't get us food. So we had to forage for our food for that evening. We ran across a German, which a wagon, and the Germans had been retreated so fast, they left all this stuff there. So we ate our supper of dark German bread and blood sausage. And so that was, then we were, after that, the next day or so, we started down toward the Rhine River. And I often wondered why we were going so pell-mell, but if you follow the history of the Rhine River crossing, you may come across the fact that Patton and Montgomery didn't get along.
That was well known. Yeah. Amen.
And so the Patton was apparently out to cross the Rhine River before Montgomery. And we got down to, but a little bit did we know that, we had been outplayed there because the bridge, Remagen Bridge, that
the
occurred.
Bridge too far, yeah.
No, that's the bridge too far. The Remagen Bridge is the one the Germans tried to blow up, but failed to do it completely. And so we were able to send across people.
Secured the other side.
And they got enough across where the bridgehead was supplied. But we got down to the beaches of the Rhine River there, and we were supposed to, the 3 waves of our boats were supposed to go across. We were in the third wave. The first wave got across okay, but with a lot of firepower from the ground. Then the second wave got caught right in the middle of the river. And so, as a consequence, we never got across. And we marched 15 miles down the river. And we got there. Patton was in that town at the time. And we crossed on a pontoon bridge that they had already established a beachhead across. And so we crossed on the pontoon bridge, and it probably was the same bridge Patton went over on. And so we got over there, and the Germans didn't have much fight left. We didn't run into too many people, soldiers. That was about the time that Roosevelt died. And nobody told us on our side, but the Germans told us.
Oh.
So that's how I learned how that came about. Then he went down into central, central the front was an area where we were just going from town to town. And in one of the approaches to one town, we were proceeding, and then suddenly some small mortar shells start coming in. And so, of course, we were all down on the ground. And I was hit in the cheek with one, but it never there was no blood. So I didn't deserve the Purple Heart. I didn't deserve one. It bounced off my rifle, see, it lost some of its velocity. And we only went up to this town that was up on the hill there, and suddenly some firepower came in, bursting at the treetops. And so we all looking for a place to hide. And so I saw this door to this barn, so I burst through this door, and guess what it was? I was up to here in the manure.
Oh.
So that, but at least it got out of the fire. Anyways,
no comment.
No, it's just one of those funny things that happened, you know. I'm glad to have funny things to say. Anyway, then we just sort of proceeded across and down, we went into an area that the name of the town that we were assigned to was named Plauen, Germany, and we were assigned there to guard a lot of apparently that city was a place where the high-rank German officers bunked, and they were fed with good food. And so we had to guard that stuff, and some of the stuff was like canned strawberries and all that sort of stuff.
You had to liberate them.
And we liberated a few.
Yeah. We found a barrel of sake once, too.
No, so then we went down to toward Czechoslovakia, and we got down there, and one of the things, it's kind of humorous to me anyways, down there, we toward the end of the war, see, nothing was really going on in our area. We were assigned to have a movie room, a movie studio. So, to me, it's hilarious to say this place where we watched the movies was a condom factory.
Oh.
There's all that stuff around.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, that was very funny to me. And we got, then the next day or so, we got down, the Germans had it surrendered. And all these airplanes were flying over us. And the Germans were trying to get away from the Russians. That's what the basic. And so we went over, I went into Czechoslovakia, and we were walking down a road here right in front of a big dam, and some German soldiers came toward us, armed. They didn't raise the rifle. They just walked toward us, and we knew what they wanted. The camp, prison camp, was just up the road, so we sent them up to the prison camp, and they walked up there.
Good.
They were trying to get away from the Russians again.
Oh, there was no love lost between them.
No. So that sort of ended our sort of, the Germans had surrendered with nothing left to do. We were sort of put in occupation duty for a while. We ran around looking for various holdouts from the German army.
Oh, stragglers and what have you?
I think they call them werewolves, wouldn't they?
Oh.
Wasn't that what they were?
I don't know.
I've forgotten really the name. Anyways, I was only in there for about less than a month or so, and then we were sent back to France, and we loaded aboard the biggest American boat at that time. It was called the West Point at that time. I think it was called the America.
Before that.
Before that, yeah. We were probably, from what I understand, we were the 2nd Division back from Europe. And we landed in New York with all the fireboats
the hoopla and so forth,
and no ticker tape or anything like that. It was just a fireboat thing, and we docked in Manhattan, and we were sent up. Then we were sent to various places we were inducted from, and so I was sent back to Fort Devens, and there we were given a 30-day delay in furlough. We were supposed to be sent back to the division. See, they had to prepare for us. This all wasn't 100% planned.
Probably weren't even ready at that time.
No. So I went back to Fort Devens, and there they assigned me. It was either going to be a barracks guard or something else. So I became a finance clerk.
Oh?
Mm-hmm. And so I was there, looking over the final pay of GIs. They were getting out ahead of me. I didn't have enough points to get out. So I was assigned to this section until my points came up. And so I got out of the Army, as I said before, on March 16th of 46.
Mm-hmm.
So my service in the Army was not very long, only about 2.5 years or so. Then I got out of the Army, and to get out of the, went to, as I said, Fort Devens, then I went home, and while I was home on the 30-day delay in route furlough, the Japanese surrendered on the last day of my furlough. And so consequently, we had to go back to Fort Devens because no further orders. So they got back there, and they were sent down to Fort Benning, Georgia again.
Not back to basics, I hope.
No. No, they sent us down there, and that's where our division was broken up. It was
Decommissioned.
decommissioned. Yeah. And so after that, of course, I was sent back home.
Okay. Now, I'd like to go back a little bit, if you will, to when you hit New York, as they say. What were you feeling like? How it was over and done with? You were home. Now, did you have to do any sort of parading up and down the streets there? Did you just go where to Fort Dix or someplace? No. How were you received and then dispersed?
Well, of course, the usual fireboat spraying water around and tooting their horns and all that stuff, but no ticker tape parade, no big parade or anything. Okay, we just landed in Manhattan and went back up to Fort Devens.
Okay.
And no big deal.
All right. Now, when you were through, did you take advantage of the GI Bill example?
Yeah. Well, I got back and while I was actually, I had signed up. I entered my record, my scholastic record, to RPI, and I was accepted into RPI before I was out of the Army.
They're really hot for bodies, huh?
Well, I'm sure of that, but you had to qualify.
Oh, I know. I'm not knocking you down, buddy. Don't ever think that.
No, but so I went to RPI, and about 3.5 years that I graduated in 1950. I went back to General Electric Company as an engineer.
Double E?
Yeah. And got back there, and I was assigned to various projects, post-war projects. And one of the most interesting things, almost immediately, I got involved in the Mark 56 gunfire control system, which was a thing to direct the firing of shipboard guns.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the kind of thing the English had developed during the war. And I believe if we'd had this thing about 2 years earlier, the kamikazes would have been dead ducks. And that's it's equipment to aim radar at and determine. At this thing, I was given the responsibility of locating the target to calibrate each of the.
Okay, so you went back to the Ordnance Department then, didn't you? Is that where you
That's
worked?
where I was working in the Ordnance Department, yeah. But I left there after a while, and they went to work in where the regulators are, the adjusted voltage on transmission lines.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And as power is transmitted down the line, it loses some voltage, and so it's a system that changed the voltage and upped it so they could go a little bit further. Then at that place, I was assigned to work with two other guys, and working on a solid state replacement for the system. Then so I was in there for. I think it was about 6 months or almost a year, and we came out with a product, and it was, as far as I know, we were assigned a patent.
Oh,
on
good deal.
On this thing, so that's the event of that thing. But while I was there, I did design a transistorized control for. It's like I think it was for like movie studios where motion picture for dimming the lights.
Oh, rheostat kind of deal.
Well, it was all done electronically. It's all done electronically now.
Oh, okay.
And so I had made myself into an electronic engineer. I was just an electrical engineer first. Then I made myself by studying and reading books and experimenting, I made myself into electronic engineering. So while I was there, the management didn't seem to be quite understanding of what electronics was. And they refused us to use some of the most recent components. And they based it upon the fact that it didn't have 10 years life study.
Okay, so it wasn't
Electronics,
proven. Yeah.
electronics since then has never had 10 years life study.
It changes by the day you get the first thing out the door.
Right. And so I got sort of, pardon me for saying so, I got disgusted. So I went to California on a vacation, 2-week vacation. And out there I read in a newspaper about a job. And so I went and interviewed for it. And I was accepted. When I got back to the States, the eastern states, I was accepted, and I persuaded my boss there to let me go. So I went to California. When I got there, it was in fact, it was just about 50 years ago today that I left.
Well, happy birthday.
Well, it's probably the best thing I ever did.
Good. Why? That's the important part.
Well, when I got to California, I was assigned to the B-70 project, but it was folded up within just a short time. Then I was reassigned, and this is the most important part. I was reassigned to the Minuteman, Minuteman II missile. Mm-hmm. It was in the process of being redesigned. And this is, as I say, it's nothing to plan, but I got associated with the people, the men who invented integrated circuits. And I was assigned to the committee there's a bunch of us were doing various things to get these things prepared and put into production. And one of the things we had to do was I wrote specifications for the first linear integrated circuits. And then committee meetings, we would discuss various things. We even discussed the name. It was either integrated circuits or functional electronic blocks. So we decided on, well, everybody, it was a foregone conclusion, it was integrated circuits. Uh-huh. So then I got involved in on the side. I worked for a guy in model airplanes. He made the means of supplying the control surfaces with the proper motion.
Or radio control?
Radio control.
Good.
And that was been my sort of hobby for quite a few years before that. And I got working with him, and I invented something. The process of transmitting the signal to the plane, and the plane would then decode it, and then through relays, it could tell the control surfaces which way to go.
Up, down, yaw, whatever.
Yeah. And so I was put assigned by this guy at nights on coming up with a system of eliminating these relays. In fact, the transistors have always been the thing that was originally by Bell Labs supposed to be the thing to replace their relays, transistors, and transistors do it very well.
So this is, if I'm butting in, but this is that place called Silicon Valley. Is that where you're?
No, well, that
downstream.
That was before that. I forgot
the
thing when I was working on the Minuteman II. With the people I was dealing with at Fairchild Semiconductors, and that's where I met Dr. Robert Noyce, and also the fellow from TI, Kilby, Jack Kilby, and they were the two inventors of integrated circuits. Mm-hmm. And while I was there, I didn't know really what it was, but I found out later that what I had gone through was the very, very beginning of Silicon Valley.
Oh.
It wasn't Silicon Valley at that time. It was just Fairchild Semiconductors, one building. It was these two men from Fairchild that left Fairchild after a while, after I left, and formed Intel.
Okay, branched out.
That was the very beginning.
Wow.
Intel, and it went on from there. Even the salesman that used to call on me at both the Autodetics and at this other operation, that he went up pretty high too, just being a salesman, I guess. You get enough
Did you buy any
knowledge.
stock?
No, I didn't know I was going through.
Hindsight's wonderful stuff and expensive.
No, I was quite interested in my hobbies.
Uh-huh.
So, as I said, I went to work for this guy. I worked for him at nights, but then I left them I got the opportunity to work on radios for this guy. So I went there for a while, and then things didn't quite work out 100%. So I left and went out there and found a guy. I took a job at another place, but it was kind of interesting too, because I got on the Saturn project.
Oh.
And there's a place where we wrote possible failures in the system and what its effect upon the mission.
Yeah.
And it's a process which I used for several years there afterwards as jobs. And then I worked for, I went to work for a company on this Saturn project. We worked on the third stage, which was the one that sent them into orbit and then sent them toward the moon. And the program there consisted of, as I indicated, writing various histories of what can happen. Mm-hmm. And we had to have a lot of backup, of course.
Worst case scenarios and how you accomplish that.
Yeah.
For them. Yeah.
Well, it's the kind of thing you should go through. Anything that doesn't work, if you sense something doesn't work right, you try to figure out how you can do it better. Mm-hmm. Anyways, that's what you come through a high failure rate thing, that's what you worked on. So eventually I got out of that thing, because I met a fellow there who was also interested in radio control. So I had, in my own private time, had developed a system that was working real fine on the bench. I needed somebody to really
put it in something,
fly it. So he went to see heard that I had developed this thing. He came to me and we got together and we finally decided to go into business together. And we formed a company called EK Products. It's we made radios for the radio control model airplanes, boats, cars, and anything else. The product was called well, it was EK Products. The product was called. Well, pardon me for a moment. My shirt has it over there. Anyways. The product was a real success.
Good.
We built 100 of them first year. We went into corporation in California. We made these for about 3 years or 4 years. Then he had a family, and the situation in Southern California was not very good anymore. There was lots of smog. And so we decided that to do the best for everybody, we moved the company, and we found a place in northern Texas, and we moved our company there. and we proceeded to make the radios, and I did some more development, and really some of them were really inventions.
Good.
And one thing, I think one of my inventions is still used today in the robots, unmanned vehicles.
Oh.
It's the way the power system is, and the signals are handled. And
Well, do you have any patents on these things to kind of
no,
help the bank account?
We were all small companies, and not enough money to really.
Well, Bill Gates was kind of small starting in a garage, too.
Well, he had a lot of help.
Okay.
I'm sure. But anyway, the thing is, was we had a lot of these circuits that I developed and designed, and we developed. I was president, CEO, and chief engineer of this thing for 15 years, and then it came to a position which is kind of hard to explain, but we got involved with customs. In the meantime, we moved our assembly area to Matamoros, Mexico. And we, as I said, later on we came involved with customs, not because of me, because of somebody else. And as a result, I bought this other guy out, but I couldn't run the company and fight the customs. So I folded the company up.
Oh, just pull the plug?
One day I just said, it's all over.
Oh.
Had to. I run out of money.
Oh.
Then I had to then go to work for myself. Here in the process of finding another job, I went to work for a company, E-Systems, in Arlington, Texas. And there I worked on a system of sorting mail. And I don't know whether this was the first mail sorter ever, or whether it was even put into public
Production?
production. But I did go out and look at all the installations they had for proving this thing. And so I had to come back, and I wrote the report to the services for getting this thing approved. And so I wrote, and by the way, I developed my ability to write computer programs in 1979. And I wrote a computer program to make this report out. It was the first computer they'd ever seen.
Oh.
So
you've been the father of a lot of things, huh, Dad?
Oh yeah, well, I used my computer in the last year and a half of my company, and I wrote a lot of programs in there. And one of the most expansive programs I wrote there was a inventory control program. And when we had a time sharing down in Dallas, Texas, doing it for us, up until that time, it cost us $1,000 to have it run once a month.
Oh.
So I got on the computer. I was told you couldn't do it. We couldn't take it over because my computer didn't have enough memory. That was not anything to say to me. And I went back. I worked on the computer, and I came up with a system where I wrote my own inventory control system, which was completely across the board. Everything was taken care of, reordering and everything. It's what today it's called a database program.
Oh. Again, this question, did you have a piece of it? Did patent it? So.
No.
Oh.
Well, look.
I know it, but I keep looking at the bottom line. That's what makes life interesting sometimes.
Well, I didn't know what I was doing.
Oh, but you did a good job at it.
Yeah. Well, I had to write also other programs too, bookkeeping and all those types of programs. Mm-hmm. Did all that on computers. And so when I got to this company, E-Systems, I was able to write a database program for the Army, with the reporting to the system. And I got to work, left there, and eventually, and I don't know whether they got the project or it was all done, or anyways, they ran out of work for me. Then they went to a company which they had come up with a system of spying on front lines.
Oh.
They developed a system which could record any sort of RF, things like automobiles, engines,
And it emitted.
and things. And it was a thing they ran up and down. I think it was pretty much the Israel border.
Oh.
And it was an airplane they would have filled with this equipment that could pick up these signals. So it was a very interesting signal, and I did work on, when I did the reliability analysis, a lot of this stuff. The system, one of the systems I really enjoyed it was one for, Israel was interested in this system, and they were going to have a tethered balloon spying on the
Spy in the sky, sort of
spy in the
stuff?
sky, yeah, a tethered balloon. And I worked on that for a while, but then I switched over to another job. I worked for Motorola, and as I said, I left E-Systems because they ran out of work, but they ran into the need for something at Motorola. I worked there for a year or so on the reliability analysis of their new 800 megahertz walkie-talkie-like thing for police and various other reasons for using a walkie-talkie. Then I left there, and I also worked for on a helicopter, for Bell Helicopters. In fact, it was just down the road a piece from where I lived, and I worked on that for a while, and worked on the Super Cobra, and putting all of the electronics, a lot of the electronics, and the armament, the new armament that had come up with. And I also eventually, these jobs don't last awfully long sometimes. Reliability, once you get done.
Oh, would you work on a contract basis, or just a
No,
certain time, or
no,
project?
I'm working for a company. When they get done with that project, then you're no longer.
Yeah, you're surplus.
You leave. So I did get to work for General Dynamics in
here in
Fort Worth.
Pittsfield?
Fort Worth.
Oh, okay.
That's where they built these huge bombers, the B-52s,
Mm-hmm.
and they were building the fighter plane at the time, and I worked on the electronics there, and I was assigned to do a lot of the various work involved in repairing the electronics.
Oh. I got to cut you short a bit, Robert. We're running out of time. The man just gave me the flag, but I'd like you to, if you will, talk about your radio. As I said, we got the.
Yeah, well, one of the things.
It's a small thing, but tell us about that. That's interesting.
One of the things that I was not only owner of the company, but of course I had to go out and demonstrate my product.
Oh yeah, playing.
So I was not able to fly powered airplanes very well because I have a bad right eye. And so I took up sailplanes, model sailplanes, and I took up scale sailplanes. And in the various contests that I entered, one I particularly did very well in is in a championship contest in Winnipeg, Canada. And I won first place scale sailplane.
Now, what's the scale sailplane? I'm trying to visualize it. You got me lost. How do you power launch it or flow it? How do that?
Well, you launch it with what's called it's a big long surgical tubing, about the whole size
All right.
Big. It's a fairly
Yeah.
large surgical tubing.
A big slingshot. effect.
Several hundreds of feet, a couple hundred feet of surgical tubing. You stretch that to about twice or more of its length, and that what launches you into the sky.
Oh.
And
So you did do a good job at it then, huh? Had
Well,
fun. Must have been. There you are.
well, the thing you had to learn a lot more than just flying the airplane.
Okay.
You had to learn aerodynamics.
All right.
You had to learn airflow.
Okay. We have to. I'm sorry. We're going to have to
Yeah.
pull the plug on some. We ranted a little bit too far, but no. One thing I haven't asked: did you join any of the veterans organizations?
No, unfortunately, I didn't.
Okay.
All of this time, I was pretty much involved,
I know.
and I changed locations. So
Okay. You couldn't really keep continuity going.
no, and when I retired, I just sat back and enjoyed my retirement.
Well, good. I have to say thank you.
Okay.
And we'll do some more of this when we get back. All right.
Okay.
That was it, folks. Again, another way that somebody spent his life helping other people do good and great things. Please, again, as I said before, if you have a story to share with us, please come and let us give it a shot. Again, we thank you. Hope it was worth your time. We'll see you next time. Bob Stevens saying goodbye.